we came out to Florida, and when I visited the Performance Center, I came back and, she just can tell, that it was different. And she's like, I don't know. And I just brought up the idea. That was really cool. And, it lives neat down there, like what he's doing. It's pretty special. And she said, I had to be honest. She said, I was really surprised. And I'm probably telling it wrong. And she'll remind
Correct
me.
you.
Yeah. but she was really surprised that I retired when I did and didn't do anything.
Huh.
She always thought
anything with the business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody was more amazed than she was that I just dropped
Up
it
and
left.
left.
Yeah. She's thought, because again, even at that time, I had, I had an offer to, even if you want to just come back every month for pay-per-views and the 2 TVs, anything to,
to stay involved. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I've always kind of been creatively into that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so, but no, I just, I wanted to come home and do what I could. And I said, then we got the ranch, but then when we came to Florida, I went down there and visited the Performance Center, and she could see the look in my eye. And we were talking about it, and she was like, well, I was surprised that I always figured you'd do something in the business, and I was surprised that you left when you did and how you did and went away from it, and nobody's more surprised than me.
But she had never told you that? Wow.
No, because she just, I don't know. I guess she tries, she knows she can influence my decisions, I guess. And she's very, I think, conscious. She never wants to manipulate in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because, I don't know. She's always been wonderful about that, about not ever pressuring me and, letting things come to me in their time.
Wow.
And,
that's beautiful.
Because I guess, I think she feels like
I think I'm a terrible wife, is what I'm hearing.
Can't do my taxes.
I think it's just from the standpoint that I think she doesn't think that it will be real or it will last.
Right.
If it's not my decision.
Well, and she obviously has a great history of letting you do this, right? Like what she was told and being there for you in a different way, right? Than maybe she would have expected or you would have thought, and intentionally not influencing you, right? She wasn't saying things to you about getting off drugs or anything like that. She wasn't forcing you to do anything ever. The best way was always to just, let you, like you said, let you come to it on your own.
Well, and I think it was just the other day she said it, but she's strangely enough, she said, the role you're in now is the role that I
always saw you in. That's so cool.
Yeah. She says, she didn't know how it was
Well,
going
and
to
she
come
saw
about.
you run the wrestling school.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure that.
But like even back then, there was a time getting early in my faith and everything else. I'm putting together all this stuff. Early on, you're just feeling all this stuff, and I don't know, all these leadings and stuff like that. And
how does it start?
You have this, huh?
How does it start?
I guess I don't know. It was sincerely, I don't know, reading my Bible and taking and just having quiet time. It's the stuff I still do to this day. I still get up every morning and and read my Bible and do my devotional, and then I have to time myself now, but I gotta whatever, and then have quiet time and just see if and sometimes it's just be still and know that I am God, which is like nothing to change. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
They're not always, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly not a science to it. And God, my goodness, I'm not the guy to ask. I'm sure there are people that are way better at it than me, but it's just things like that have always happened in our life. It's, certainly for as long as, I've been doing this and then for our marriage, 27 years, that's why, again, she's, when we talked about the Performance Center and stuff like that, and it was like, well, maybe, in a short amount of time, we talk about it, and by the time we are leaving Florida, she's got it in her mind. She is dead set. We're going back to the ranch. We'll pack up in a month, and we'll move to Florida. And
Cheyenne tells the story. You guys had a house purchased by the time you left vacation or something.
She's already Googling.
Yeah.
She already had the places that we were going to rent until we're going to rent until we find a place that we
Wow.
like, and and then I'm like, really, and then we sit and we have talk with the kids and talk about it, and we go from there, and that's exactly what we did. We went back, and in a month's time, she had us.
That's amazing.
packed
She's
up
the
and-
most amazing woman ever.
Literally,
Ship
one
out.
of one.
Best wife ever.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Man,
I feel like I just don't-
obviously, obviously I'm biased. I'm sure you're spectacular, but she is, man. She's
No,
the
not
shit.
compared to her, I'm telling you.
She's freaking money. And
Yeah.
but if anybody deserves it, it's me. I don't know what I'm doing.
Of course.
For the love of God, I'm a walking train wreck, man. So.
I had this. I was going through a lot, and I was compelled to write something down. Right, for some reason, I grabbed a pen and I had a Post-it note in my closet, and I wrote, "I love you," and it stopped me because I felt like it was God telling me, everything's gonna be okay. I love you. It was really beautiful.
Yeah. Well, do you remember a gazillion years ago, we got you guys for your, for your wedding, a couple's Bible and all that stuff. And it was so
Yes.
weird. Yeah, because, I don't know, that stuff's.
But I
get
remember,
it.
Sean.
It's so polarizing.
I
It's
remember
not for
when
everybody,
you
and it's
first
a weird,
called Paul.
Yeah. So and that's the thing. Even that, and when, geez, and, and when he got sick and stuff, like I said, enough of those things have happened in my life. And again, I try not to, that's why we can live in the freaking trailer.
Yeah.
Again, everything. Again, I'm always, so thankful for this job and the life we have and everything else, and for our children and everything else. But if it's all gone tomorrow, if something, I don't happen to them, happen to you guys, just, it's like, shit, I pray for you guys every morning. Those are just things that not a lot of people have that in their lives, which is a wonderful family and wonderful friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
love.
so we've managed to get that in this crazy job. And to me, it's hard to really care that much about anything else. And I don't mean in the bad way not care, but it's, I don't know. Like, he texted me this morning, "How you doing?" And I'm like, he's like, "I'm doing good. I do have some issues. I do have some problems." But I said, "I can't give any of them to you because they pale in comparison to yours." And I said, "It is such bullshit that I don't have you to complain to anymore." I said, "I literally cannot bitch to you anymore because it means nothing." You know what I mean? He is so not holding up his end of the deal anymore. So, you know what I mean? So, I mean.
He was looking forward to seeing you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it is. It's, I don't know. It's stuff like that.
You guys have such a special relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, you do. The group of you, but you and Paul, in particular, that I've witnessed, and it's such a privilege to witness. It really is.
Well, it's a weird. I wish that sometime every now and then I'd love to be able to say, like on stuff like this, the stuff we text to each other, but we so get.
Best not to. Yeah.
yeah.
Probably best not to share.
But it's. But look, it is. It's like I said, wonderful family, wonderful friends, and again, there's nobody else.
And Sean, I don't.
Nobody else is going to be there on your deathbed.
Yeah.
So.